Hello, everyone, and welcome to And the Beat Goes On. We are so excited to be with you today. Today, our guest is Dr. Marques Garrett. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're just going to do a quick round of introductions before we get into our episode today. So, why don't we start with Nishan? Tell us who you are and how long you've been around.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name's Nishan, and I've been around the choir school for about 10 years, and I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us in this interview today. And we also have Brittany. Why don't we go next? Why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Brittany Stanton, and I am the Director of Education and Assistant Conductor at the Choir School.
Awesome. And Alex.
Hello, I am Alex de Aguiar Reuter. I am the Marketing and Development Associate and a choral scholar at the Choir School of Delaware.
Awesome. And Dr. Garrett, do you want to say a few words of welcome?
Well, yes, I'm Marques Garrett. I am honored to be here, seeing the list of people who have already been on here and some of the folks who are coming after. I just feel blessed to be a part of that group of choral leaders. And yeah, thank you. Look forward to chatting.
Well, I have to say I'm so pumped and so excited that we have you here. I've been wanting to catch up with you since 2018, since Pittsburgh and ACDA, and we'll circle back to that in a little bit. And I've been enjoying kind of following you over the past couple of years, your compositional work, and listening in to your conversation with Chris Muntz as well on choralosophy. That was really awesome. So thank you for being with us. Truly the honor is ours to have you with us today. Just to kick it off, how are you doing in all of this, COVID business during this kind of pandemic?
So most people don't believe this, and a lot of people actually don't even know this, but I am a huge introvert. But being in music, being a conductor, and an educator, and then when you start presenting, you're forced to be an extrovert. So I mean, I'm an extroverted introvert. One, I forget people's names all the time. So like going to conferences it gives me a lot of anxiety a lot of times, and so sometimes I tend to retreat and just like be with the people that I know. So when I first had to be home for a bit, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. I have to leave my house. I think the first, when it all started, the first time I left my house was after 114 hours of being in the house. And I was fine with it. I just got out because I saw everybody else saying, make sure y'all like get out the house every now and then. So I'm a person who has no problem being by himself because I can get things done. I tend to not disappoint myself. So I know what's gonna happen and the like, as long as I got my Wi-Fi and I can access Zoom or FaceTime and Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus, hey, I'm pretty good.
I'm working on that Disney Plus subscription. I'm trying to get that before Hamilton comes out. So I want to see.
I just finished this weekend watching all of the Marvel movies in order. So I'm
Stop it.
I did that too.
I'm not even gonna lie. It's my second time doing it. And I don't feel like I wasted any of my life by doing that. And now that Avatar, The Last Airbender is on Netflix, I watched the first 3 episodes last night. And this weekend is gonna be like all Avatar. So don't try to text or call me Saturday or Sunday, because that's
right. I hear you on that. That's been I think the real joy of having this kind of opportunity to have this period of time where we can do more things, if you will. And what did you do with your classes and your students? What did that look like?
So our choirs, with our ensembles, well, we decided as a university that since we had all had a performance before everything got shut down, that we would just go ahead and be done for the year, because we rehearse so much. I mean, we do get a blessed amount of time with our ensembles. And so we've been using the time to kind of rethink what we're going to do when classes resume, since the plan for the University of Nebraska system is for us to have in-person classes, understanding that social distancing will still have to be something that we observe. So we're trying to figure out how those things will come into play. And with the research that has come out about ensembles performing together, rehearsing together, how are we going to manage those kinds of things? Understanding that, Hawaii, Alaska, Rhode Island, Montana, South Dakota are not the same as, Texas, Florida, New York, New Jersey, and the like. So understanding the nuances that come with all of this. So we're using that time. And then my other class was a graduate choral literature course. And with the 3 students, we just quickly switched to online. So we just did a Zoom call twice a week. And because they really didn't have many other Zoom classes, I like to talk about choral literature, and as my students can attest, I often would go right up into the last minute and then be like, oh no, we didn't finish everything because I talked about too much about this one thing. So I was able to go a little bit longer, and they were always fine with it. They always wanted to go even longer. So so that was great. We were able to get all of those things done, and then it also I told them, now that I know this can work, I said, so as the semesters go on, you can expect that unless I am like in a rehearsal or in a session during class time, even if I'm out of town, we'll still go ahead and have correlate class.
There you go.
Because it can work.
There you go. That's right. That's amazing. That's really amazing. So it's a lot happening there. And I think, I choral literature classes, there's really never enough time, particularly if you're doing actual listening as part of the classes. So I can see how that was like a tremendous benefit to trying to work with students in this kind of context. So I would have certainly loved that during choral lit, to just have all this time to like listen through and talk and analyze through these pieces. That would have been amazing. So with the choral lit classes, when you approach that, I'm curious, do you first start off with a conductor lens or a composer lens?
So we do a combination of both. We actually have right now we have a 4-semester sequence, pretty much based on time periods. So it's like before 1600, 16 to 1750, 1750 to 1900, and then after 1900. And I just got through my first cycle of all 4. And I've done the class differently every single time, because you learn things that work and things that didn't work. And even now, I was chatting with a friend, Emmy Birch, just last week, and I was like, I'm thinking about the choral lit class and how to approach. She's like, hey, I downloaded it, read the first 40 pages, and so that's part of my summer listening now. But I kind of do a little bit of both. It depends on where we are in the semester, and I try not to treat every piece or every genre or every composer the same way. Because I am a composer as well, I do have a certain bias when it comes to how you approach music. And I think about when I was an undergrad, and one of my teachers decided to perform one of my pieces, and being the little comedian that he is, he would make reference every now and then in rehearsal, well, the composer did this, even though I was like right in the room. So everybody's like, but I vividly remember him saying, well, the composer put this in the score because he was trying to achieve blah, 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 blah. And I was like, not really. I was just trying to change it up because we had done everything like marcato before. So I just wanted to do a legato as variation. And so it got me to thinking, how often do we impose our own ideas on what the composer actually wanted? How many times do we think that this chord here is for this specific reason, or this line was written this way, or they use this? Now, we do understand that there are many composers who have that much attention to detail, but sometimes I think we do put a little bit more in the music because we want to get more out of it. And so I let my students know, sometimes you can just look at it at face value, and you can come up with your own, instead of saying that, because this person said this or this book said that, it has to be this. So there are many different things that you can consider. And I love theory. So we do have elements of theory in there, because especially as you move more towards the contemporary music, there are certain compositional elements, theoretical ideas that really shape how the composer created the music. And so we do need to talk about that. You know, if you're talking about, what is it, Britain's War Requiem, you know, you're talking about you have to talk about tritone. Like you can't get past that. If you're talking about Charles Ives, you just have to talk about throwing a million notes in one spot. Or, you know, if you're talking about Ligetis Lux Eterna, you got to talk about canon, you know, all these simultaneous canons at these weird rhythmic values and that kind of stuff. So there are just so many things that you do have to consider. Or Arvo Pärt, oh God, love talking about him. You know, tintinnabuli, you have to talk about theory if you're going to talk about tintinnabuli, and you can't talk about Pärt without talking about that. So it depends on the composer, the genre, the time period, the country, or just the mood that I'm in.
Yeah, I get that. So, Neshan, I know I want to get to you and to your questions for Dr. Garrett. What are your questions that you might want to ask about, whether it's about kind of choral literature or composition and how that works?
Okay. What music software studio do you normally use when you're composing or arranging different songs?
I use Finale, and I use Finale just because it was the second program that I got, the one that I got in undergrad. A good friend of mine, Colin Lett, got me on to that. Has it really been almost like close to 20 years now? Wow. Sorry, just thinking about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes by fast.
It really does. So yeah, I learned Finale and I just stuck with that. I tried Sibelius and I was just like, nah, this ain't Finale. So I just stick with that.
Now,
Okay.
one thing I'm curious about is, I don't know if you've tried, there's a newer program called Notion. And so I guess it's been around, but I just started using it. I've been a Finale person my entire life.
Cool.
And I just started recently using Notion because they have an iOS app where you can actually use your Apple Pencil to like actually write notes on your iPad Pro, which is amazing. So it was a little bit cheaper. The sound samples are from the London Symphony LSO. So it's really cool and very similar, much more similar to Finale than Sibelius. So I don't know, maybe try it out. Like the iOS app is $15. They are not sponsoring this program. I just think it's great. They can if they'd like to, but I have to say, we'll take it. We're a nonprofit, but it has been excellent. So I think that's a really interesting question. And a follow-up question with Neshan's question, with what you use with composition, do you prefer to kind of sit at the piano and write and then go into Finale, or do you just kind of work through everything in Finale? Like what does that process look like?
As of late, I tend to do pencil first at the piano, and then as the deadline quickly approaches, I'll then have my laptop with me because I can put it in a lot faster. But I mean, I know when I first started composing, I would say the first like 7 or 8 years, it was a combination of only using pencil and paper, only using Finale, or doing a combination of both. And it was just whatever happened. I think that the first piece that I got published was written 100% pencil and paper, but that was because my teacher, Carl Harris, had given me the Johnson Brothers book of spirituals. And I had seen this, literally was in the airport on family vacation and opened the book, and it opened to Poor Mourner's Got a Home at Last. And so I said, well, this must be God telling me to do something with this spiritual. And so since iPads weren't a thing back in 2004, 3 or 4, whenever I did that piece, I just pulled out the staff paper and did it. And by the time I got home from vacation, I just had a few more measures to put in. And then I put it into Finale versus I think a couple of my art songs I may have done exclusively on Finale. Yeah, I know my first art song I did do that, so it's just whatever mood I'm in.
Interesting. I'm always very curious to see what how people, do that. And I know there are some strong opinions out there about, like how that should happen. Brittany, do you have any questions for Marques?
I do, and this will be more towards your teaching side of things.
Right.
I understand that you are rather passionate about breaking down the stereotypes of what Black music is or is not. And having been in a classroom that was predominantly brown children in elementary school, my curiosity is, what advice would you give to a teacher who is not necessarily knowledgeable or brown or Black in teaching brown and Black music without cultural appropriation?
So that's a lot. Well, I'll start off by saying that it is super important for students to be able to see themselves in as many different areas as possible. So they need to see themselves in the conductors, they need to see themselves in the composers, they need to see themselves in whatever the profession may be. And I understand that, in elementary school, it's only going to be that one teacher. So it's not like you can just like, hey, snap your fingers and change your color and everything's going to be great. I understand that. If technology is something that you can use with ease, then it may be, hey, how about I invite, this person to do a little Zoom call so that my students can see somebody else. Nowadays, so many people are willing to just sit down for 30 minutes and have a conversation, especially if it's to inspire young musicians. I think about some of my younger colleagues and friends, especially the women like Zaneta Robles and Maria Ellis and Brittany Boykin, even Shantae Pittman, who's in Georgia as well. Like, they would have no problems just having a conversation saying, this is what my career has been like. These are the things that I've done as a woman of color in music. And I think of even some of the brown women that I know, like Diana Saez and Jessica Napolis. I mean, two other women who would be willing to, have conversations and that kind of stuff. Then when you think about the music, this past year, I decided to start using our Apple TVs more. And so I put my rehearsal plans up using that. 'Cause I love technology. I love PowerPoint and how you can use the little Office 365 to create these fancy designs. And I'm not that creative type person. So I like when somebody else or some other program does it. And so, I put those things up, and then I started putting up the pictures of the composers every now and then, just so that people can see what these composers look like. So when we were working on a piece by Brittany Boykin, I specifically chose the picture of her with her beautiful afro. I didn't have to say that she's Black or that she loves being Black and she's proud of her Blackness. They could see that in the picture, even though most of my students don't identify as Black, they just needed to see it. So with the students who are Black and brown, they need to see those people. Now, I do understand that with my area of research, looking at the choral music of Black composers that does not fit into that those idiomatic genres that we tend to associate Black composers or Black musicians with, like jazz, gospel, spirituals, hip hop, R&B, blues, rock, all those styles. I have not found yet a lot of composers who have been writing for younger voices. When I first started out, I still remember that first session I did for Florida ACDA. And my friend Alex Favaza up in New Hampshire now said, he's like, man, your session was good. All that music was hard though. You got all these high school teachers, and then I was like, because I thought when I went back and reassessed, I was like, oh crap. What I did was I looked at all the music I did when I was an undergrad, or the pieces that I just love with choir and orchestra and all this kind of stuff, or like the Ulysses K, like we were talking about earlier. And so I then had to say, okay, well, who are the composers who are actually writing, some music in these styles, but for younger voices. So then I start thinking about composers like Rollo Dilworth and Victor Johnson. Of course, he's like the king of writing for younger voices. And I've heard many people who have said, oh, I didn't even realize Victor Johnson was Black because his music doesn't sound Black. I mean, Andre Thomas even has pieces that work for younger voices as well. But my best friend, Edrin Coleman, teaches at, oh God, he's gonna kill me right now. He teaches in Howard County, Maryland. Oxon Hill.
Oxon Hill.
Yes, there we go.
Oxon Hill High School, yeah.
I should know this.
No,
oh my God.
Is it?
Is it not? It's not Oxon. Hold on. He's gonna kill
Oakland
me.
Mills.
Oakland
Mills.
Okay, there we go.
There
Oakland Mills.
Sorry, I couldn't pull it out.
So he when he taught at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, I was for a time was teaching at Cheney University, two historically Black colleges within 45 minutes of each other. And I got to know quite a few of his students. Well, since he and I are best friends, brothers, essentially, and some of his students call him dad, some of them started calling me uncle. So one of my nephews, Jossie Blanton, teaches in Texas now. And he has become interested in this topic as well. And he started looking at all state reps to see how many conductors choose non-idiomatic choral music for their all state reps. And you can probably figure out it ain't that many. But he's also been looking more for the music that'll work for the younger voices. But there is one suite that I found by Judith Beatty, who's out in California. It's a Kwanzaa suite that she wrote for children. And so, this is a huge topic. And there's actually a lot of music. And so I know I can't do it all. I'm glad people are now interested and they can start digging at, in a few more. So like Edrin Coleman and Vinroy Brown, who's in New Jersey, did a session for New Jersey Music Educators Association on women of color. And they chose quite a bit of this non-idiomatic music as well. So I said all that to say, show them what people look like. Even if you don't get to do any music by a composer that looks like them, still show them, say, these are some of the composers, who have written music like this. You may play Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, but have you played one of the pieces from the 10 plus volumes of organ music by Black composers published by GIA or Publications or Morningstar? And there are lots of organists now who are doing those types of recitals. So, you can play a little clip and say, hey, you got this white guy who did this. Guess what? You got a Black guy who did this as well. So yeah, those are some of the things. And then when it comes to like cultural appropriation, this is a very, it's a hot topic because we are in an age, 2020 is the age of wokeness. Yep. Everybody wants to make sure that they don't offend anybody, that they give everybody the platform that they need. And I love and appreciate all of the liberal, all of the kind and dear-hearted white people who are just like, this music is not mine, so I can't do it. And I've had a few conversations about this in the last couple months with some conductors like, yeah, my students don't want to do this because they feel like, we can't because it's not our music. I say this, and hopefully if I'm wrong, somebody will let me know about this. But when the spirituals were first being arranged and published by the likes of Harry T. Burleigh, and when you look at those early scores, or any scores that have come after them, they will say, the name of the spiritual, Ain't It That Good News, Deep River, My Lord, What a Morning, Way Over in Beulah Land. It'll say arranged by so-and-so. It'll say traditional spiritual, or typically it would say Negro spiritual because that's the term that was used at the time. That's the term that I choose to use, but that's another topic for another conversation, not today. But at no point, on no score that I've seen so far, is there a little asterisk, a little note that says only to be performed by Black people. It doesn't exist. And if I could have a conversation with Harry T. Burleigh or Hall Johnson or William Dawson, I would ask them, did you intend for this music to only be performed by a certain group? That they may have written, we know that Dawson wrote a lot of the music with his choir at Tuskegee in mind. Det wrote a lot of his music, even though most of his weren't spiritual arrangements, but he still wrote for the Hampton Choir most times. And then when he got to Bennett College in North Carolina, he started doing a little bit more with women's choirs. But unless it was commissioned or they specifically just wanted that piece for that choir initially, they would put something like for this choir. But it was never only for this choir. And I also say they submitted it to these white publishers for it to be sent to everyone. And a lot of people know Ezekiel Saw the Wheel arranged by William Dawson. And it was dedicated to John Finley Williamson and the Westminster Choir. Like, people, they wanted everybody to do this music. There are timeless themes that can be discussed when you talk about this music. But one thing that I've learned over the past 2 years of living in Nebraska, and for some people who may not know, Nebraska is not the most diverse state. So as when I go to high schools, they will sometimes say, hey, can you work on the spiritual with us? And I'm like, of course. You got one of 3 Black collegiate choral directors in the state come to your high school. Black people are supposed to know how to do this stuff. I'm just going to put a little caveat. Every Black person doesn't know what it means to do spirituals, as we say, authentically, which is another topic for another day. But they may not have grown up in that tradition and that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I have studied this. I have worked through this kind of stuff. So I would consider myself like a budding expert when it comes to performing spirituals. What I learned is that students almost never learn the history of spirituals. And so I used to have like little 1.5, 2 minute, like short TED Talk commercials about spirituals. But when I had a conversation with, Anthony Tressett King about that, he was like, oh no. He's like, take time, let them know. And so I started having 10, 12, 15-minute conversation with high school students about spirituals and where the music came from. And understanding that even though we pretty much only choose the up-tempo ones to end our concerts and to, get the audience, all happy before we leave, and the choir to feel like they can do all this movement,
right,
which we shouldn't be doing. But when they do all that, they're doing all that kind of stuff, they haven't talked about the struggle that caused this music. So I literally had the conversation with the last high school I visited was outside of Omaha, and about 2/3 of the way into it, I asked them, and again, this is a very white school, and I asked them, are y'all feeling uncomfortable right now? I said, you should, because the people who created this music, they were not living in a comfortable situation. And so if you're going to do their music, you need to understand the discomfort. You need to understand the struggle. You need to understand the pain, the hurt, and the death that was experienced in order to create this music. So no, there's no cultural appropriation that is that really has to be considered with this kind of stuff. Do you need to study the music and study how to do it? Absolutely. There are tons of resources out there. You have some contemporary folks like Andre Thomas, who wrote, one of the definitive books on understanding and performing the spiritual. You have Felissa Barber, who did her dissertation on dialect when it comes to performing. And she did linguistic studies on, older choirs and all those kinds of some of the professional groups and historically Black college choirs and what they did and how they sang it and put it into IPA and everything. And I'm just like, ooh, I'm glad Felissa did all that, so I didn't have to. But sometimes we also forget about all of the historical documents that are available. So a lot of the collections actually talk about how to perform that music. So you need to look at John Work's American Negro Songs and read those 20 or 40 pages, however many it is, at the beginning of that. You need to read in the Fifth Jubilee Singers collection. You need to read, I have right back here, Arne Nathaniel, that's my favorite composer. So I have 3 of his 4 collections of spirituals. And with 3 of them, they have forwards that talk about authenticity, performance practice, all those kinds of things. There are tons of folks out there who actually know how to do it. So if you have no problem looking at the Chester Always history of Western choral music, or the Schrock books, or one of the 8,000 books on Brahms, Beethoven, Mendelssohn, or Bach. If you can look at those and study that stuff, you better be sure that you study this stuff even more, because you probably didn't get as much instruction in school on how to do this kind of stuff. So make sure that you do it right, because you don't want me to be in the concert and then you do it and I have to sit there and give the little pity clap just because I'm
pity
so
clap.
I'm not going to, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to just make people feel okay with the things that they've done. So if it wasn't done well, then I will sit there and not clap, because clapping shows that what you did was okay. And whether I say something to you or not, you need to know that what you did was inappropriate and that kind of stuff. So there's so many ways to not be. And I know you're huffing and puffing because I've been talking too long.
No. I think it's great. But I always say this all the time. And, also we spoke to Stacey Gibbs about performance practice in Tempe, because particularly with these functional work songs, I'm like, well, what pace would you want to be working at? So I think I think that we can continue to do more performance practice sessions and things, because I feel like you're right. A lot of folks aren't getting a lot of this information in the academy, let's call it. And should they be? Yes, no, maybe. I believe yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to stop you there. There's no maybe. It's a yes.
It's for sure they should.
It's a yes.
But it's not happening. And so I really strongly believe that during conferences, we should be setting aside time to specifically go through those sorts of things, to make sure that we are doing a good job. I mean, how many sessions of like Brahms or Bach or whatever do we go through? And then you go to, a conference and you have your one Black session or your one multicultural session. And it's like, of course, the spirituals and the music from Eurasia and the music from Africa and it's all lumped in there. And so it's not actually a deep delve in, it's not doing justice to anybody's culture, because it's just too broad, too general. And I agree with you on the point about the Negro spiritual. It really makes people uncomfortable to use the word Negro, but I think there's a lot of importance to do that. And I know there's a big push for folks who might be watching to call it the American spiritual, but these folks were enslaved. They were not Americans. They were not given citizenship. So I do think that it is super important that people keep that in mind, because that's part of the history of the genre. So I am like, amen. I'm with it. I'm down with it. And I always say this all the time when we're working on spirituals, it's not a spiritual unless it sounds like you've been through it. And that's just what it is. And I think it's really important, and it's very, 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 very timely. All of these sorts of things. And another thing I wanted to kind of circle back to is we are in a time of awareness, a greater awareness. I'm not going to say as aware as we should be, but it's greater than it was. But I think there's a really wonderful book, and the author's name is escaping me, but it goes From Wake to Woke to Work. And so, and I really love it. And I've used it a lot in like some facilitations with organizations that are going through some sort of like diversity issues or whatever. But yeah, it's a really wonderful text. But the premise is, it's like, we are between, I would say, awake and woke. Like, we're not 100% woke. We're aware, so we're awake, and we're moving to woke. But I'm really looking forward to the work one. And so I think the work one is when we're having more conversations, and I think in our field we are not relegating spirituals to be the last thing on the concert to make feel good. The real work, the academic study beyond just people of color studying, composers of color, like all of those sorts of things, I think, make a lot of sense. And that's always my mindset. Like, you got to move them along that continuum, got to move them along. And I don't know.
When was the last time that you heard a sorrow spiritual done in a concert? Like, it doesn't have, it almost never happened. You know, I mean, I was grateful for the Aeolians at National ACDA to do the My Lord What a Morning. And they did, I think it was the Dawson. And I did not know that one before. And I remember talking to Jason, I was like, why didn't you do the Burley? I was like, the Burley is it. Like I just have, that's a personal bias because that's the one that I did when I was in undergrad. So I love that one. Somebody actually texted me this morning. It said, "My Lord, what a morning." And I was like, have the stars begun to fall? Like what? And so that's been like in my head, that I only hear the Harry T. Burley arrangement and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we don't hear those almost ever. And it's important for us not only to program it, but for those of us who are composers and arrangers to also look at those. You know, you may not get a commission for, you know, sometimes you get a commission for a spiritual. And a lot of times you then want it to be the most impactful, the one that's going to be, yeah, woohoo. But this is now, I'm challenging myself now. If I get a commission for a spiritual, I'm going to do a slow one. I'm going to do a sorrow spiritual and figure out how to really pull a little bit more out of it.
Yeah. We have two comments / questions from Facebook right now. One is from Mr. Jason Max Ferdinand himself. He just commented, hey, yes, the Dawson. So he is in fact watching. And we have another question from Stephen Holmes. Is there a composer that you feel is a best kept secret that more people should take a look at their music?
Okay. So, hi, Stephen, and back, hey, Jason. So is there a that is really tough because I cannot say one. I think about when I interviewed here, someone asked me if you had one piece that you could that you would perform here, what would that one piece be? And I said, well, can I choose two? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, my three choices would be.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
I'm going to give you three. One for the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. No.
There you go.
I would say our Nathaniel Dett is still not as well known as he needs to be. And when I was at Florida State, one of my really good friends, Alex, invited me to be a part of the concert series that he started at one of the churches on campus. And he was like, hey, you're doing your dissertation on Dett. Let's do a Black History Month type concert. You'll do some Dett pieces. And so I chose 5 of his pieces. And then a friend, Aaron Vaughn, conducted William Grant Still, Panamanian Dances, and George Walker's Lyric for Strings, which is one of the best string pieces I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, back to this topic. So, I mean, Alex has said Dett is a baller. Like, he's like, there's so much of his music. Do I have my binder? Yeah. So this is my binder. This is my dissertation binder. And I keep it right here just to remind myself of what I had to go through to get this degree. But I have a printout of all the pieces that I analyzed and also the form that I created to do my analyses. And I mean, there are so many more pieces in here that I will do eventually. So he is one, and I can talk for days about him. I would say another is Ulysses K., who we talked about earlier. If you don't know Ulysses K., he does not have a bunch of music that is for middle school. I would just put that out there. He does have a few sets for treble choir. One is called The Birds. I think it's 4 pieces in that. Then another one is called Pentagraph. And both of those are for either 2-part or something. One of them has a movement for like 3 sopranos and 3 altos, and they have piano with them. So you have that. My first semester here, chamber singers performed one of his madrigals, How Stands the Glass Around, and with every rehearsal, I got more and more excited about the piece. And I still remember right before the concert, I was like, let's just sing through this, just a couple sections of this real quick. And I remember just having to stop them because I got so excited. I thought I was going to church, even though it was not a sacred piece, but I just got too happy because they were singing, they were excited about the piece. And then this past year, we did 3 of his psalm settings. And they were 3 of my choir's favorite pieces. I mean, when I told them that we were going to take them to France when we were supposed to go to France, they got very excited. And I'm like, ooh, okay, So when am I going to program his choral triptych? When am I going to get the program? I mean, some of them, yeah, it is hard.
We've been there. We've been there.
We've been through it. We've been through it.
So yeah, he and as we were talking earlier, from what I read, and hopefully somebody can again will correct me if I'm wrong. I have no problem being corrected. What I saw was that when Ulysses K was commissioned by ACDA to write for their first national conference after they separated from MENC. Don't ask me who the choir was, but I know it was choir and their choir and chamber orchestra. It was a 2-movement work, like 10 minutes long. But yeah, Ulysses K, baller. And then another one that almost nobody knows about is Edward Markinson. Now, he was born in the West Indies, eventually made his way up to New York, started the Schubert Music Society. And the only piece that people know, if they know a piece by him, is He Stooped to Bless. GIA Publications released it. It's a simple 4-part piece, very easy with the ranges. But over time, I've thank God for WorldCat and for ILL, because I was able to get a few other copies of some of his pieces. And then a friend in St. Louis, Christopher Watkins, actually shared some manuscript copies that he got of Markinson's music. And so I started going through that, playing through, and I was just like, whoa, this guy is amazing. So I scored one of his manuscripts, A Few More Years Shall Roll. And after, I was like, this just looks like it's going to be good. I think I'm going to perform this very soon. So I put it into Finale. I didn't do it in Sibelius or Notion. I didn't get to that yet. But so I scored it out and listened to it so many times. And I shared it with a couple of people, and they were just like, wow. I never didn't know about the composer, didn't know obviously about the piece. And as I've been looking more and more at his music, just to see what he does, and he loved imitation. There's always going to be a section where he takes this one little motive, maybe like 4 notes, and he'll just have it in all the voice parts, sometimes little duets. It's fantastic. So Art Nathaniel Dett, Edward Markinson, and Ulysses K. Those are 3. Sadly, all 3 of those are dead. I mean, there are some living composers that we definitely need to look more at and commission from and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Awesome. This has been an amazing conversation. I could go in for like 2 more hours because these are all of my hot button issues, like all of my favorites. I'm like, oh my God, yes, there's someone else out there. I love it. Love it. Like literally, this is like my soapbox. Like, so I'm just like, yes, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. All right. One thing that I do want to make sure that people know is if they want to learn more about your work and your music, where should they go?
So you can just go to my website, mlagmusic.com. In addition to, the regular stuff folks put out there like bio and calendar and all that kind of stuff. I have a research tab as well. And so on the research tab, it lists 2 things. I have a list of all of Harry T. Burley's art songs that I downloaded from the Library of Congress website. And there are multiple voices. A lot of people know him for his spirituals, and we know him as being the first composer to set the spiritual as an art song. So we're grateful for him for that. But what most folks do not know is that he was an accomplished baritone. He won a competition to have and had a 50-year career at an Episcopal church in, I believe it was New York. He also sang the solo when Samuel Coleridge Taylor had come from England to DC to do a production of the Song of Hiawatha, or maybe it's just Hiawatha's Wedding Feast, with the Samuel Coleridge Taylor Society, 200 Black people in DC in like 1902 or 1903. Burley was one of the soloists for that. And so with him being a composer and being such a great singer, he wrote a ton of solo pieces. So I, being the choir and vocal nerd that I am, like I said, downloaded all of those individual JPEG pages and then put them all together and then, you know, gave it the new title with the voicing because a lot of them have multiple voice. And so I have all of those. And so there's a page that just lists all of that. I'm like, hey, if you want to get a copy of that, hey, let me know. And also you can purchase some of those from Classical Vocal Reprints that Glendower owns. But also the other tab is titled Beyond Elijah Rock, the non-idiomatic choral music of Black composers. So it gives a like short description of that. Talks a little bit about what else I have. What else? Oh, the database. And so what I've been doing is the handout that I have been giving out over the last 2 years. Every time I did a session, I was just like, okay, Marques, you are doing too much work, having to constantly go in and update. And, oh, you forgot to put this person on. And, oh, yeah, you know this person. Make sure you have them on there. Like, make sure you have enough living and deceased composers. Why don't you just go ahead and make a database, and now everybody can have access to it as you continue to add to it. So it's broken down. There are 4 tabs, a Google spreadsheet that is added on there. You have a full list with composer, title, voicing, if there are any instruments, and publisher, and maybe some other stuff up there. But then there are also 3 other tabs that are just for the unaccompanied, just for accompanied, and then choral orchestral. And also below that, if there are pieces that people are like, hey, you don't have this on your list, or I'm a composer, I have stuff that fits this. I'm like, please let me know. Send it to me. I can add it to that so more people can find out about it. So that's what those things are. So, and I also have a note. Let me go ahead and type these composer names out right now that I mentioned earlier before I forget, because I know that I have been talking very quickly because I know that we're limited on time. And so I'm just like, I gotta get it all out before this hour is up.
We will go back through and we will link everybody to these resources.
Oh, great.
I will tell we'll reshare it out so that you don't have to worry about that. But I have used that database before. I also have like you were kind enough to send me the handout. So we'll make sure everyone gets to your website. I'm telling people it's so great. It's such a wonderful resource for people to be able to use. So thank you for people who are like, I want to do stuff and I don't know where to start. That is a fantastic starting place just to get started. So thank you for that. As we're getting ready to wrap up here, we were asking you about like, oh my gosh, you know, we want to play something of yours. And so we were thinking about what we might do. And we were going to play the Hold On as sung by the Aeolians. And I'm wondering, I know you don't like choices, but I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want to play that recording, or do you want us to go to the UNL chamber singer singing "Oh Praise the Lord"?
Ooh.
And I know that's a hard choice. I know it's like choosing.
No, okay, so hold on. How much time do we have left?
Well, really, I mean, we should probably wrap up in the next like 5 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna stop talking. We're gonna play both of them because that would be just under 5, and then we can play our little game real quick. All right,
sounds good.
I'm done.
All right, so I'm gonna pull up first the Ulysses K.
Okay.
And I think everybody should do this piece. It is brilliant. It is wonderful. It is so well sung and so well conducted. So here we go. This is "Oh Praise the Lord" by Ulysses K. Just give me a moment here, and I'm going to share my screen, and we'll check this out.
And this one is still available. You can go to J. David Pepper or the Edition Paters, and you can still purchase these.
Here we go.
Oh, praise the Lord, all ye nations, praise him, all ye people. Oh, praise the Lord. Oh, praise the Lord, all ye nations, praise him, all ye nations. Praise the Lord, all ye nations, all ye people.
I love it. It's so great. It's so wonderful.
And they love to sing. That choir just loves to sing, and it just makes me want to conduct. I'm just like, hey, let's have fun.
It's so great. I could go on for and staying inside the box, the control, everything. It's just it's brilliant, brilliant. Love it, love it. Okay, we're gonna go to Hold On. We're gonna go quickly to Hold On for, if you guys do not know this and you're looking to build out your library with some things of Dr. Garrett's, this is, I would say, a must-have for sure. So Alex, do you have this one ready for us?
I do.
Awesome.
So let me share this. Oh, of course, it only wants to do that.
I mean, I just want to say that I'm just, as a composer, I'm grateful every single time somebody chooses a piece of mine. Even if it's just one piece a year, like total, all the choirs is only one piece. I'm grateful because we keep, other composers are writing music, more people are finding old scores and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm just always grateful. And so definitely grateful when, you got somebody like Jason Max Ferdinand and the Aeolians to perform your piece. You're just like, I have reached, at ACDA, they talked about, getting to the mountaintop. Yeah, that was my mountaintop experience.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, I can only imagine. I can only imagine what that must have felt like. I mean, I was in the room when it happened and I just still can't believe it.
I was there too. And I still sometimes am just like, did that really happen?
All right.
All
we're
right.
gonna try this.
Oh.
I can also give this a try here. I think I live for that moment where your face comes on the screen. I live for that moment. I live for it every time.
I'm grateful for O'Brien recording that for me.
Yes. I am sure. Well, we are going to move quickly to the quarantine quiz here.
Right.
We're going to have you on the show again. I was just sitting here thinking, you know what? We're going to have some fun with this since summer still will be a little bit slower. We'll have you back on.
Okay.
And we'll have more of a conversation. And I'm thinking maybe we pull in some other conductors and composers composers of color all onto one call, and we push this out.
I've got quite a few people that I could recommend.
Oh, yeah.
Like
we should
like
do like a whole panel. People won't be ready for it. They won't be ready for us.
So that don't rush challenge, everybody in there is definitely worthy of being in. Jan Taylor down in Houston. I love Jan Taylor. Like I said, my best friend, Jason Dungy at Claflin, Jason Fred. I mean, all of those. Yeah.
We're going to get it. We're going to do it this summer, coming to you. Everyone be on the lookout. We're going to do it. We're going to do it via Zoom, and it's going to be great. All right. Brittany, are you asking our questions today for the quarantine quiz?
Yep, all set.
We're going to have a little fun here. It's our ending quarantine quiz. It's 90 seconds. We're going to ask about some things that you may or may not have done during quarantine. It's just a fun, lighthearted game. If you've done that thing, you're just going to put your finger on your nose. So really, this is just a fancy round of nose goes. And I'm going to get 90 seconds on the clock here. And you're going
While you're doing that, Mr. Max Ferdinand, in fact, just said he had not yet seen that video until just now.
Jason, have you not seen that video? It broke. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I've probably seen that video. Choir Buzz probably shared that like 7 times, at least. That week, the Aeolians literally broke ACDA. It was amazing. All right, let me know when you are ready to start, and you'll see a little picture of a duck. It's hard to see now, but it'll show up.
Ready? Skipped online school because your internet was down. Joined a virtual party. Lost track of the days of the week. Morphed into a nocturnal being. Logged onto Zoom with business attire on the top and pajamas on the bottom. Spoken to a friend you haven't caught up with in a while. Binge watch a show in 48 hours or less. Shopped online for something you didn't need. Hid away in your room because your family was driving you nuts. Bought snacks for a week and ran out in a day or two after going to the store. Worked from your bed. Forgot to brush your teeth. Slept past noon. Played a board game. Did a puzzle. Cut your own hair. Baked bread. Made a TikTok video, spent more time on social media than off, taken a face mask selfie, coughed and wondered, skipped a shower, gave into Tiger King, made a new recipe, purchased more than 10 rolls of toilet paper at a time, became that person at Costco, pretended to be frozen or muted on Zoom.
We are all out of time. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. This is not the last that we will do this. I promise you. I've got a note on my notepad that we're getting this panel together this summer. We're going to have a good old time. It's going to be the virtual version of the choral cookout. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you to Nashawn for being on, Mr. Alex and Brittany. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you watched us today, we will be following up. We'll share out a recording to this on our social media links and pages rather, and with links to some of the resources we were talking about so that you can use them because now is a great time for planning. Now is a great time to start buying music. Now is a great time to program. So we want to make sure you have all of this information so you can include composers of color on your programs. On Thursday, we will be catching up with Dr. Chris Thomas from Rowan University. We are super excited. We're going to be talking about the Brock Commission with Ivo Antonini, who was on last week talking about that. I want to digest their ACDA program that they did. It was absolutely incredible, and talk about just the renaissance that is happening at Rowan University. A lot of great things happening over there. So tune in on Thursday, and that will be at noon, same time, same place, same number. You know where to find us. All right. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today, and we'll see you on Thursday.